Okay, it's 10 o'clock. I would like to call this meeting to order. The proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. We can move on to item 1.2 of our agenda, which is the roll call, and I will ask our clerk, Jessie Clark, to please conduct the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Lampset, are you present?
I am present.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong? Present. Councillor Braybrook?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
And Councillor Cadigan is absent. For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CIO Treasurer.
Present.
Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works.
Present.
Bianca Dragicevic, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Amber Novak, Executive Assistant to the CIO, Legislative Coordinator.
Present.
And Jessie Clark, Director of Corporate Services Clerk, is present.
Okay, thank you very much, Jessie. We will move on to item 1.3 of our agenda, which is land acknowledgement and moments of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge that Trent Lakes and Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the William Treaties First Nation, which include Alderville, Beausoleil, Curve Lake, Georgina Island, Hiawatha, Rama, and Scugog Island First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we can move on to item 2 of our agenda, which is the disclosure of pecuniary interest. If anyone has a pecuniary interest on an item on the agenda, please state it now or any time during the meeting prior to discussing anything that you have, anything on the item that you have an interest in. I'm seeing no hands. We can move on to item 3 of our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda is circulated. I would see Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover and Councillor Franzen for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can now, I would entertain a motion to suspend our special council meeting and go into a closed council meeting. I need a motion to do so. I see Councillor Braybrook for a mover and Councillor Franzen for a seconder. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are now going into closed session to discuss on section S239.2 to discuss advice that is subject to solicitor client, including communications necessary for that purpose, which is a legal opinion, and I, which is trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, or financial or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which, if disclosed, could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group of persons, or organization. References. Okay, we are going into closed. Okay, our closed meeting is concluded. I would entertain a motion to reconvene our special council meeting and to rise from closed. I see Councillor Franzen for a mover, Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, we can move on to item 5 of our agenda, which is business arising out of our closed meeting, which we believe we have none. Now we can move on to item 6, which is staff reports. And I believe 6.1 is Bianca Dragicevic, our deputy clerk. Would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you. And through you, before is a report outlining the references for MVW construction and engineering by both Greenview and staff. At the July 25th special council meeting, council had directed staff to gather information regarding MVW construction and engineering's recent projects, whether they were completed on time and within budget and client feedback, as well as recent bid amounts for comparable projects. The responses received were highly positive and no concerns were identified. Staff have also provided a high-level overview of the items submitted with the bid and the mandatory documents requested for bidders to submit. Other projects were also researched and are outlined in this report to demonstrate how this project compares to similar facilities in Ontario. After this review, staff are continuing to recommend the following. That council approves awarding RFT 07-2023 for the new dedicated mechanics facility to MVW Construction and Engineering. That staff approve awarding RFT 08 for 2023 for contract administration to the for the new dedicated mechanics facility to the Greer Galloway Group. That council approve funding for the project in the amount of $9,353,650.03 to be funded from a construction loan through Infrastructure Ontario. That council authorize any contingency amounts for the project in the amount of $919,546 to be funded from a construction loan through Infrastructure Ontario. That council authorize the department head and CAO to execute any agreements necessary for the award of the project, and that council directs staff to bring a bylaw to authorize borrowing and a loan application to a future council meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bianca. Anyone on council have any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
I just have one question for you to Evan, I would assume. If in the future council decides that we put panels for climate change, for, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Would the roof support that structure?
Thank you.
Is there any issue in installing that?
Thank you. Through you, Councillor Lambshead or Mayor Lambshead to Councillor Franzen. I'm not 100% sure on that to be sure. It's obviously a structural question. I'd have to glean from the structural engineer whether we would be capable of that. I would think, but to be honest with you, I can't say definite yes or no. And I think that's something to know moving forward in our projects. So when we design a building to right off the bat, make sure that it can be as sustainable as possible. Even looking at, I know we've talking about electric vehicle charging stations and stuff like that. I think just being aware and making sure that these are built in. But at this time, I don't want to say yes or no.
Okay, could you get me that information then?
Yep.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead. My questions are all around cost. This is 10 years old, at least. It's incredible. And we've gone through so many machinations, starting with the size of 11,000 square feet. Somebody proposed 28,000 square feet, 21,000. We're down to 17,200, which seems reasonable based on all the vetting that has been done. The crane has been removed. I think we've done all the due diligence. My question is around the tender bid of 8.9, I think, plus contingencies, et cetera, what that includes, so that we have a total scoping of overall costs. I know it doesn't include now, which I thought, the sand domes and the salt, which will be a separate tender, and that will be probably next year if timing goes as we plan it. But things that were included, excuse me, I don't know why my voice is going, but things that were included back in Greenview's summary, including demolition and removals and site preparation, potable water supply, sewage treatment, fire water works, stormwater works, parking lot and paving, all of those things. Good Lord.
Take your time.
You might have a silent counselor at this end of the table. Goodness. I just want to understand if those are all included in the bid, or if we can expect that there is additional work that needs to be done in order to make this fully operational, and for which we will have to budget additional costs and pay for additional expenses.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Through you, Mayor Lambshead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Yes. So the sand domes were not included within this budget price, but all the other site works, which would include the potable watering, the fire water servicing, which is the fire tanks in the ground, the stormwater management, demolition, which isn't the demolition of the existing building, but demolition and site removal, such as grading and stuff like that. That is all included within the tender, as well as some contingencies built in, including the sound barrier as well. But the actual award of that sound barrier hasn't gone through yet because it's going through that construction. There's a cash allowance within the contract for allow for that. But with any project, municipal project, you never know what you could run into. So I'm not going to say no, there's going to be no surprises. But at this moment, I believe there shouldn't be any more surprises coming out, but as we know with construction, you never know what you're going to get.
I appreciate that. And just so long as it's inclusive of the work that was being bid on, then I'm fine with that. And the only other comment I would make, if I may, is that I'm fine to move ahead with this. I mean, I appreciate the cost per square foot that was presented to us. Cabin Monahan, the fire hall is probably the closest type of development that they've been recently involved in. And we're actually at $516 a square foot, lower than theirs at $564. So I believe all of the due diligence has been done. I did note in some of the references that this contractor has in the past identified opportunities for cost savings. And so I would certainly encourage us as we move forward to encourage them to be aware of and identify any potential without threatening, obviously, the security of the structure of the building.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Braver.
Through you, Mayor, it's just a comment, and I echo Deputy Mayor's comments about if there's any opportunity for savings, just because we have the contingency of 919,000 and change. We just don't want that, and I'm sure it wouldn't be the case, but I just don't want it to be looked at as a bit of a slush fund, that we have an extra 919,000 to spend, and as opposed to, it'd be nice to have a mindset that out of sight, out of mind, we shouldn't be touching that, and we should be looking for cost savings as best we can. I mean, that goes without saying, but I'm saying it. So, thank you.
I just have one comment. I think as we proceed with this project, if it gets approved, I think you'll find some cost savings. Concrete's becoming a little more reasonable. Some of the materials that are more readily available, and the prices are starting to stabilize a little bit. So hopefully we can find some cost savings, even just in material, which can be substantial on this size of project. Okay, any other questions? I am seeing none. Any comments from staff? I just want to thank staff for all the efforts they've put into getting information to this council and back and forth to each other. I think it's very important that we communicate with each other. This is the single largest project that Trent Lakes has undertaken. I appreciate all the efforts that everyone's put into this. Thank you.
I'd just like to add to you, Mayor Lamshead, to all members of council. I'm really encouraged by the way that, we had that strategic meeting back in February, and we identified that, these infrastructure buildings are a priority, and you guys are following through with what our priorities were. And that, as a staff member, as a director, encourages me to see that I have the support of council, understanding that you had to do your due diligence, get a little bit more information. And I think that's for everybody, just appreciate that, we had that conversation back in February and we're following through with that, and things aren't changing. So I just want to say thank you to you guys.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we can move on to item 7 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming. Oh, okay, yes, sorry, we want to have a motion to accept that information. I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yes, I'd like to make the motion, and I'll read it if my voice holds, even though we don't seem to have an audience, but still I think it's important that it be clear. So we're receiving the report. We're approving the awarding of the request for tender 072023 to MVW Construction Engineering. Further, we approve the awarding of RFT 08 2023 to Greer Galloway Group. Further, we approve funding for the project in the amount of $9.3 million to be funded from a construction loan through Infrastructure Ontario. Further, we authorize the department head and CAO to execute any agreements necessary for the award of the project. And further, that council directs staff to bring a bylaw to authorize the borrowing and a loan application to a future council meeting.
That is a motion that is moved by Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? I see our clerk, Jesse Clark. Well,
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamshead. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, you just did miss one fact about the contingency amount. So I just wanted to make sure you were moving it as recommended with the contingency amount of $919,546 to be funded from a construction loan through Infrastructure Ontario.
fourth that.
I support that. I didn't see it in the motion.
The fifth that.
The
sorry.
fifth that.
It says that.
Thank you. Sorry. Yes, my error. Yes, I would like to include that.
Okay.
And actually, I have a question now that it's been seconded. Does our purchasing authority matrix, that's the wrong word, allow for the CAO and department head to execute an agreement of this amount? Or do we need to have the head of council do that?
Go ahead, Jesse Clark, our clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead. The purchasing policy matrix has that council, the mayor and clerk through the authority of council to sign any agreements. However, in order to expedite the administration process through this resolution, you would be delegating that authority to the department head and CAO to sign the contract.
Okay, then I think it's not too late. I'd like to just amend the motion and to say that we authorize through delegation, the department head and CAO to execute agreements.
Are you okay with that amendment?
Yeah,
Council?
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
I'd just like, this is such an important motion. I think I'd like to record the vote.
okay. That is your right to ask for. Okay, we've had any more conversation? I'm seeing none. I think I will hand this over to our clerk to call the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Franzen, are you in favor?
Yes.
Mayor Lambshead?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Yes.
Councillor Braybrook?
Yes.
That motion is carried.
That motion has carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, now we can move on to item 7 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming bylaw. 7.1. Would anyone like to be prepared to make a motion? See Councillor Braybrook for a mover and Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. We'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on now to item 8 of our agenda, which is our adjournment. Would anyone care to make a motion to adjourn? See Councillor Braybrook for a mover and Councillor Franzen for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you all of staff. Thank you, council.